got CP, ain't you?
It's so funny.
Downgraded for a lack of physical movement.
And everybody wants to have a more accessible industry.
That is great.
I would never want to be pigeonholed into just doing CP roles. My first job was being dragged across a golf course in the snow, pretending to be dead.
What the Wait, hold on. Welcome back to the Not Cut Pod. Today we've got Abbie with us. Abbie, do you just quickly want to introduce yourself and let everyone know a bit about yourself?
Okay, hello Charlie, hello everyone. I'm Abbie, I'm a talent agent, writer, producer and access coordinator.
Love it, and we're going to touch on these things anyway, so we're going to do a deep dive. But first things first, I always get people to give a bit of context as to like who they are, how they grew up and their journey sort of this far. What has been your journey this far, getting you to this point?
Oh, well, I started off as a young girl in a small town. So everyone says, no, I have cerebral palsy. So was born with it, was diagnosed when I was 2, grew up in a place called Aldershot and then moved to a place called the New Forest. Was very kind of keen from the age of like 7 that all I wanted to do was work in film and TV and nothing else like really mattered to me one bit. So that's probably played a part in me getting to where I am now because I've been very stubborn. But because of that, I've had quite a juicy career so far, and I'm 28 now. So I made a little Instagram post about this morning, about being the little kid that like had loads of dreams, and then the next thing you're at Cannes Film Festival. So very apt that you asked me that question. But I guess that's the journey cut down.
I love that. So what got you, like, I know you said it's like been something that you loved from a very young age, but what actually got you into performing?
My first job was being dragged across a golf course in the snow, pretending to be dead.
What the fuck? Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
What? Why?
I know. I know. Yeah, super random. So like, just to dial it back a little bit, I went to there were like acting and TV classes outside of school.
Yeah.
And then was just like really adamant that I was being my own agent from like being a kid, and I tried to find my first job. I booked like a murder reconstruction thing, and like me and my parents didn't really know it was legit. And like, I mean, I went and did it anyway, so I don't know whose judgment that was on. But yeah, I played a murder victim, and I had to get dragged across a golf course in the snow. And for some reason, I was like, yeah, I love this. I want to do this every day.
Actually, what I'm most intrigued by is how did the logistics work of that? Like, right, hang on to this for dear life and just keep hanging on.
Oh, it was a person that was dragging me.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
I know. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It was cold.
Yeah.
It was a cold day.
Was actually, like, I'm guessing the snow wasn't real because we don't get snow that often, and that would have just been.
It was just like that, like mushy, sludgy, like shit that we call snow. It was real. It was just like we filmed it in like, oh my god, Charlie. I mean, I was 15. This is like 13 years ago now, but it was like January, February time or something.
Oh, yeah.
That was my first job. My first job as an actor.
Wow. And then from there, it just turned into a love that you just kept going with.
Yeah, I mean, so I was still like auditioning and doing little bits in college and stuff, and then I just got really interested in like making films instead. So I kind of, when I went to uni, I moved into that, and I was doing a bit of like modelling on the side as well. Yeah. Yeah, and I did that thing of making like really arty films at uni that made no sense but seemed really cool at the time.
Oh, love those. I remember doing that.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, I there's a lot of you're living what everyone suspected I would do. I think if you caught up with my old drama teachers, they would have pegged me to be doing some of the stuff that you're doing. Because basically, what happened was, like, I studied performing arts in school, did really well, and then basically did it at GCSE. And GCSE, for anyone that's American listening, is like high school grading, that sort of area. And basically, I did it there, and I was really good at it. Teachers were all happy. My practical went really well, to the point where I made the examiner cry. It was a very
Oh.
emotional piece, obviously
Oscar,
being
Oscar.
yeah, yeah, being the disabled guy. Everything's built around the disabled guy, so we went down the emotional route. And we put in a
Then
full like movement montage and everything to try and get my marks up for adding movement. And then I thought, oh yeah, I'm onto a winner. Made the examiner cry, made the teacher cry. I thought, yes, I'm in here. And then I got downgraded for a lack of physical movement.
oh,
And I was like, what? Wait, hi, or what? And then the
oh
reason
my
behind it
god.
was like, you shouldn't have let the disabled person do a GCSE performing arts. You should have made him do the BTEC. And it's
Are
like,
you joking?
no, I'm not. And then to make matters worse, to make it even better, I did get the last laugh. I A starred in my A levels
Oh,
in
slay.
performing arts. So yeah, I think everyone expected me to go to like performing arts college, uni, whatever that was. But then my thing was, because our CPs present very differently, is I was
No.
the guy in the wheelchair, and I didn't want to constantly have to play the guy in the wheelchair and constantly look for roles
Yeah.
for guys in wheelchairs, because they don't. There's
No.
not many of them out there. There is more now, but back in the day, there wasn't a lot, and that was my big thing. That was why I went in a different direction and sort of started titting about on social media like I do now.
Were you super excited when RJ Mitty was cast in Breaking Bad? Because I was. I was like, oh my god, we have cerebral palsy representation, and it's
Yeah,
worldwide. I got so
yeah,
excited by that.
100%. And I think as well, there's been slowly more and more people that's come forward, like public facing, that have got CP. So it's been like really nice to see. Actually, I do have a small confession to make. I
No,
didn't know
no,
whether to bring it up or not, but I'm gonna do it because so it shows that I'm not as bulletproof as everyone thinks I am. The first time I met you,
no,
we were working on a project with a friend of ours as an access coordinator, and
no.
I didn't actually know you had CP. It wasn't till I can't remember, it came up in conversation and you mentioned it. I went, what? And was too chicken to be like, question, what? I thought I didn't, because I didn't want to ask too many questions. I just didn't say anything. I never clocked.
do,
Normally I can
do you
see it
know
from a
what?
mile off.
This is the thing. I think we have a bit of a palsiometer because I get that all the time. But I'll tell you what, I met someone with CP the other day, and they were like, "Oh, like, do you have CP?" Like, you don't look it or whatever. Which, I kind of I understand that. And they
Yeah,
went, "What type do you have?" And I was like, "Hemi." And Charlie, they looked at me like, "Oh yeah, I see it now." Like we
yeah,
have this
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
awareness
yeah,
because I was like, "Oh, it's on my left side," and they were like, mm-hmm. It's like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
like we
yeah.
just have because like I'm the same, and like I never want to generalize, but I do think there are some characteristics with cerebral palsy, kind of no matter what end of the scale you have it, that are a
Mm,
bit recognisable. And I thought it was so funny. I felt like I was being ID'd by a bouncer. They were
yeah,
like, "You're good."
yeah.
It was so
I
funny.
mean, it's so true, because like one of them, and I've seen you do it, and I do it. A lot of people with CP, obviously, if it doesn't affect that part of their body too much, we're hand talkers. We love talking with our hands. Everyone does
Oh
it,
yeah,
and then some. I was at a party once. It was for Purple Goat, and I was at a party, and this girl comes up to me. Never met her in my life, and then we interviewed her on the pod. Loved her to bits. Katouche. She came up to me out of the blue and goes, "You got CP, ain't you?" I'm like,
this is what I mean. It's
"What
so
the?"
funny.
And then she went, no, it was the follow up that did me. It was because I was chatting to people when there was someone behind me and I was chatting away. She was like, two things gave you away. One is the like overextending your neck to talk to someone over the back of your wheelchair. Every wheelchair user with CP does that. Second one was
Um,
the T-Rex hands, and I went, "Oh my god, you've just hit the nail on the
I'm
head."
so I
I
do this
am,
all the time, all the
yeah,
time.
yep. So that was my experience. But no, first time I met you, I didn't clock that you had CP. I had and purely, and this again just shows that we're all human. Guessing, I was like neurodiverse. That was where my brain went because I was like, I can't see anything, so I'm gonna guess and go neurodiverse.
But then to the trained eye, once you knew, you'd been like, oh yeah, I see the palsy in her now.
Yeah,
I see
yeah,
that.
yeah. That was literally the whole thing that happened. But yeah, I did want to confess it because I was like, do I mention this to make myself look like a mug? But then I was like, look, it just shows that everyone does it. Like, we all, like,
Yeah, they do. And do you know what? Like, I get it all the time. Honestly, I do. And like, I don't mind it if it's coming from a place of like curiosity. It's when I have to like
yeah,
defend myself because of it. It is totally different. Question though, I want to know what you think. Somebody said this to me once that like, this is a widespread, maybe controversial thing to say.
yep.
Do you think all people with CP are a little bit gobby and mouthy? Because somebody said this to me, and like a bit cheeky and a bit of like a.
See, I think there's a good 80%, but then there are some people that are still finding
80%.
themselves. Yeah, there's still some people finding themselves, finding their voice. But I think
agree.
because we can't, stereotypically, you can't do something, whether it be you can't walk long distances, you can't walk at all, whether it might be. Communication is our big hitter, so we then rely on that too much, and also I think the sarcasm and the making jokes about it is also the defense mechanism, because it took me sort of dialing back and going, why was I always the loudest, proudest, coming out with the weirdest shit guy in school? And I was like, it's because I wanted to be accepted, and I think that's where a lot of it comes from. But then a fun fact, and I think I've mentioned it before, I find it really challenging when I meet someone with communication difficulties, because verbal communication is what I depend on so much. When that's taken away, I don't know what to do. And I find that really funny, though, when you sit and cast it back to going, we both do performing, and you sit there thinking, there's so many different types of performing. Why does that freak me out? So not even freak me out, it just throws me off. Like I'm not, like I have to, there's a switch that needs to flick. It's really weird.
I know exactly what you mean.
But coming back onto you, because we've gone on a very weird tangent, what I did want to ask is, like, you've been in, like you say, you did a lot of like indie stuff in college and uni and stuff. What's been your favourite thing you've worked on?
Oh, probably. I mean, so one of my grad films that I made, I produced it, I wrote it and directed it. Like, the film was not great by any means, but the experience and the production and just the fun we had that summer was like, unforgettable to me. So that would be one. Excuse me. And then the other one that's probably been the favourite thing that I've worked on is probably Silent Witness, just because I had such a wonderful team, and like it was one of the most accessible and supporting shows that I've ever been on. Like I felt like I could really like be myself throughout the whole thing, say what I needed, say what I could and couldn't do. And I'd never done that before. Like I worked on a big old Hollywood feature a few years ago, and I couldn't do that. Yeah, but this was the first or one of the more noticeable shows that I could do that on. So yeah, that's two. My own film, because I mean the film wasn't good, but the experience was fun.
But I think there's a lot of that, like coming back to like we said with the doing it in school. That's some of my favourite memories, but nothing to do with the performance. It was the rehearsals, because it's the bullshit you come out with in rehearsals. You go, what?
This was so much fun. Like I made this really nuts road trip 70s film, made it look like it was set in America when it was filmed in the UK. And I needed like all sorts of people, and I was really, really set on like needing this biker gang. And where I'm from in the New Forest, there's quite a lot of like biker groups, Harley groups and stuff.
Yeah.
So I just went to a biker meetup, and you've seen me, Charlie. I'm quite petite and like quite unassuming sometimes until I start talking. And I took these flyers to all these like scary blokes with Harleys, and I was like, "Come in my film, come in my film, come in my film." And then like a couple of weeks later, I was like, oh, just going to like die of embarrassment. Nobody's going to show up or anything. Yeah. And the sun was going down, and we hadn't got the shot. And then all I hear is like, vroom, vroom, and like 12 Harleys all came round the corner to come and be in my film. It was so special and so much fun. So it's things like that I remember. And like my mate who was shooting another scene, like we strapped him. We opened we could not get away with this now, even though it wasn't that long ago. But we opened the back doors of my friend's Mini and strapped my mate into the back of the car with bungee cords, and he hung out the back, like filming with the camera. Like, it's just nuts.
That is great. That is great.
Yeah, so that's like really special to me, that film.
What's been the hardest project you've worked on? Like, what was the most challenging?
Uh, hmm, Probably the Hollywood film that I did, because that was 9 months long.
Oh
It
my
was
god.
very, very like physically demanding, and
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I can do it. I don't need anything, and it was just like a real struggle. Like 12, 13 hours a day for 9 months is like
Yeah.
hefty.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, just like a really good experience in the sense of like I learned a lot about film, but I also learned a lot about myself and what my personal limits were. But yeah, that like fully nearly killed me off. And like at the end of the job, I got COVID, which was kind of a blessing because I just had to like lie there for like 3 weeks like this, like nobody talk to me. I just need to recover. Not that I would ever think COVID is a blessing, but like, do you know what I mean? At that time, I was like,
No, I
oh,
know
I
what you
can
mean.
rest.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Is it? I know you can't name names because I'm not nice to do that. But is it a film that everyone would know?
Probably, yeah.
Ah, fair enough. Cool. That's
Probably, yeah.
I mean, as well, like also the pace. I can imagine the pace of that sort of film set is
Yeah.
like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah. I was like, I mean, it was a few years ago now, but it's still like felt like a very, very tiny fish in like a kind of big, inaccessible, scary pond. But like I learned a lot from it.
How did you get that gig? I'm curious.
I hmm,
Can you
I
say?
think it might have been through the Dank newsletter. Do you know
Ah,
the Triple
yeah,
C
yeah,
newsletter? Yeah, I think I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it was that though, and they put a link to this initiative training scheme that were like crewing up for people for this feature. I'm pretty sure that's how I applied. Got so much love for Triple C and Dank. I've like a lot of my opportunities I found
yeah.
through them.
I love them as
Shameless
well.
plug because I love them.
Nah, nothing wrong with a plug. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, like, and then so you obviously do a lot in film, but you also do some stuff around casting and run an agency as well. So, first question I'll ask, because you were actually, when we were at Nadex, you were looking for a casting then. So, what got you into
Mm.
casting?
Well, I kind of go back and forth between being an agent and being that. I mean, my agency is always I've been running it for 5 years, right? So that's kind of my main thing. My clients, I've got like 60 clients. I work with them all really closely, um, kind of finding them work. But then within that, you sometimes fall into casting for stuff as well.
Yeah.
Just love working with people, really. I mean, to be honest, the reason I started my agency is, and this is ironic because of like some of the jobs that I've had since then, but when I finished uni, I was like adamant at that time that I would never be able to go and work on a set like a non-disabled person might. I was just like, there's no way I won't ever be able to manage it. Um, so, and I'd already been making films and stuff, right? I knew loads of actors, and none of them were
Yeah.
represented, or the ones that weren't happy, or da da da. So I just it's like, how hard can it be? I'm just going to start an agency. I've been doing this for ages anyway, like unofficially. So let's do it. Let's bounce. That was 5 years ago. Still going strong.
Fucking hell.
But I know that was my reason for starting it. And especially when you're like in the early days, when I would be, because it's all reputation, right?
Yeah.
Somebody's not going to want to be represented by you if you're not going to get them work. Simple as that. So
Yeah.
I would know a lot of filmmaker friends that would be making their films and not really know anything about casting. And in the start, to be honest, I'd be like, look, I can help you cast, but I'd like to put my clients forward. And that was a
Yeah.
nice little way of getting experience
Yeah,
casting,
yeah.
and then putting my clients forward as well. And then it just kind of stemmed from there. And then my work as an access coordinator has
I was going to come
led
on to
into
that.
casting a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
The two, depending on the show that I'm doing, they will want help with casting, particularly if they are trying to reach diverse groups of people or disabled people. because very similarly to you, like I do a lot of stuff on social, and so our networks are quite good, right, with people that might
Yeah.
want to be interested in that kind of thing. So everything kind of connects, I think.
What? Because obviously you've been running your agency for quite some time, as you just said, and you obviously started out just kind of pushing your name out there and using the connections you had. How have you built? Because like going from that to 60 clients is quite a fair old
I know,
feat. So
I know.
what's that journey been like?
Well, Charlie, it all starts by getting dragged across a golf course in the snow when you're 15. No, I'm kidding, but it's just hustle though, right? It's just like I knew I wanted to do it. I knew people working in film. I'd worked in film. I knew people trusted me. Like people knew that I'd been an actor. So I started off being like, oh, I'm just going to represent a select number of clients in Hampshire where I was then
Yeah,
living. Then I was like, oh, maybe I'll bump it up to go to south of England. Oh wait, people in Scotland are contacting me for rep now, and Wales and Cornwall. Oh, okay, let's go countrywide.
yeah,
Um, and then I just jumped. I mean, the thing is, I've never been interested in representing hundreds of people because I don't have the manpower for that. But
yeah.
also, I don't think you get the same like one to one
Connection.
kind of boutique
Yeah, yeah,
approach with that.
yeah,
Yeah, because I'm doing it because I want to support talent. If you're representing hundreds of people where names just become numbers, then you're not nurturing the talent. You're not
yeah.
helping them move forward. Um, so yeah, it was quite a big jump. But then, five years, I think that's, I mean, COVID was in the middle of that as well while I was working on these other shows and just like spinning plates. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's been like a quick-ish growth, but kind of organic as well in a sense because I've just
That's
been in control of it.
that's mad. And I ask this, if it's too personal, we can scratch it. But is the agency your main source of income?
It fluctuates, to be honest. Totally fluctuates because, especially like when the writer strikes were happening in the States,
Yeah.
and then at the time of COVID as well, there's not a lot being shot and being made. But then at times like now, where I've got clients shooting stuff like around the world, like
Yeah.
it just completely varies. To be honest, like the industry is.
That's mad. I mean, as well, that must come with some serious stress. If you're
Oh
just
yeah, big time.
yeah. How do you manage that? Like, how do you? Because also, you've just spoke to me about coming back from Cairns and being absolutely knackered. You're essentially responsible for like a large chunk of people. How do you manage your stress levels and everything else?
I'm really transparent with my clients, and I say like, sometimes I might take a little bit longer to respond. All the urgent stuff will always come first, but like
Yeah,
if it's something non-urgent and it can wait till tomorrow, then it's going to wait till tomorrow.
yeah,
But again, this is why I chose to start an agency in the first place because like it's working from home. That's why I
yeah,
wanted to do it because
yeah, yeah,
I had this like internal ableism of like I can't go out and work on set,
yeah.
which I crushed that eventually. I was like, nah, I don't need that anymore. But like but yeah, that's why I chose to do it because I was like, if I'm running an agency and if I want a day where I need a soft office, I can
Yeah,
have a soft office. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. That's I mean, I ask because I'm at a weird stage in my career, and I'm like, whoa, that's a big leap. But then I think as well, like, it's nice that you've built those connections, and as I say, I've always said I've always been quite reluctant. Like a lot of creators have agents and everything else. I've always been very reluctant because it always has felt very transactional is the wrong word because it obviously is. It's kind of you're here to do a job,
Yeah, yeah,
but it's felt very like, oh, we've had this job come in, so we're just throwing it at you because it's a job. And it's like, did you even read my portfolio? Did you even read what I do? Because this is completely not me. And that's the bit where I think I've lent away from looking at working with an agent because I'm like, yeah, I say you're just a number on a spreadsheet, and it's like, oh, yeah,
yeah.
that's the
I
tricky bit.
I think that can happen sometimes, especially if you're like with a big agency. I mean, are you speaking about like performing or more like influencer management? Because I think
Both,
sometimes they cross over a
both,
little bit, don't
yeah,
they?
but because I think as well, like if you think of, because I know like people like Zebedee, they cross over a
And
lot. Like they do a lot of model
and
stuff, then they do some ad stuff for the influencers, and then they've started moving into TV and everything else. And it's like it becomes diluted. That isn't saying disability is
Mm.
diluted. It's just that would be my concern of like how much of it, like you say, how much of a personal connection have you got with your agent, or are you just
Yeah.
moving agents every like Sharon's left, so now you got Charlie, and it's like that. That's the whole.
Yeah, yeah. I know what you mean. I guess that's why it's about finding the right fit for you as well, yeah? Because like
Yeah,
every agent's different, every performer's different, every influencer, you know?
and then also I think it's a bit of an untapped world. Like we're talking about this both working in the space, and when people like, I always play this context. It's a really weird thing to do. I always, if I'm trying to explain social media and that to, I'm like, would my dad understand this? And if the answer is no, I haven't explained it well enough. Because like I always
Yeah,
think like it's such an unusual thing, because everyone sees the glamour side of like TV, film, and social media of like, oh, these influencers make all this money, and I'm like, actually, a select few do. The rest of us kind of
yeah,
just, the odd job comes up and we're like, yeah, let's do it. It sounds like a bit of me, and it's not like, oh, we're making loads, because if it was,
I know.
it's a weird.
Smoke and mirrors, Charlie. Smoke and mirrors.
That's the thing. That's not me. That's not me. Like I can't. Yeah.
No.
But we didn't actually.
I'm the same though. I'm super transparent. Like anyone can ask me anything and I'll just like say it how it is. I've always been like that. I don't have any time for like, you know, being
But
secretive or gatekeeping or
yeah, do you think that comes from like? I think that might come from an element of our disabilities though, because like we couldn't gatekeep, because if we need support, we've got to eventually spit it out.
mm,
Well, we all struggle with that. Like I still struggle to this day to ask someone I don't know to be like, "Can you help me with this?" But also because we have to be so open because of the situations we find ourselves in. I'm like, "What happened to you?" Or like, "Oh, my legs just cramped up and I can't move, so I need to figure
mm.
out another way." And I think that's why we're so transparent. And I think as well, it's like when you, I'm going on a very weird tangent, and I'm sorry, Abbie, I keep doing this.
It's all right. It's all right.
But like it's like when I get asked the dating one, everyone's like, "Oh, what do I do about like dating?" And I'm like, the thing is, if you hide your disability, it's going to come out at some point, because I mean, are you going to go through an entire, like, let's play this long ball and go 10-year marriage. You're going to hide your disability the whole time.
I know. Who's doing that? I could never. I'm so like I'm so open about it. It's like one of the first things I told my like now partner, and I was just like this because I think it's important. Like
Yeah, 100%.
for awareness is important, and also authenticity to myself is important. I'm like, you know, I'm not interested in hiding part of myself or shrinking part of myself or just like struggling like that. Like, what's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
point?
On that topic though, like having CP and working in the, obviously now you're very much on the sort of management side of things, and dabble in different areas. But when you were very focused on the actor side of things, did you face much discrimination? Because you've got two layers, because stereotypically females get a lot of discrimination, and also you add a
Mm.
disability on top of that, and it's like, okay, you double trouble.
Yeah, I like, and I've always been in that not disabled enough, whatever the fuck that
Yeah,
means.
yeah.
I've always been in that. But then also I have some physical limitations that mean I couldn't be like a leading action girl or do you know, like even a little bit
Yeah.
active, to be honest, Charlie. I'm not running anywhere. Let's get that
I mean,
straight now,
look,
do you know?
I've been called Charles Xavier before. That role could be played by a guy in a wheelchair. Why can't I do it? Like, what's wrong with that?
I know. Like we need more kind of like open mindedness, I think, with casting because
Yeah,
that's the struggle that I had the most is just the um too disabled, not disabled enough
yeah.
thing, you know?
So it's just that the whole thing of like you're not disabled enough to play the girl in the wheelchair, but you're not able enough to play Black Widow, because it was the first name that popped into my head. Sorry.
Yeah, literally. And it's like, yeah, but is she like, because if there was a character being cast with CP,
Mm.
I don't think I would even be considered, to be honest, unless somebody wanted me to play up to a stereotype or
Yeah.
to like, do you know what I mean? Like, as
Yeah,
I am day to day, unless I'm on a flare up day, like people, I just wouldn't be seen for that role, period. I just wouldn't,
yeah, yeah. No,
which
it's so true,
sucks because it's
and I think
actually
as
my life. Like,
uh, yeah, I hear you. I think this is why I never went into it, was because I was like,
mm,
there's only so many times you can play, even from my context. There's only so many times you can play the guy in the wheelchair, and it's like, I want to do something different. Like I know
mm.
it's always played as the sob story or the inspiration story, and it's like, just just let me be a normal Joe. And I think that's so frustrating. I think so many young people in our situation, whether it be CP or not, whether it be just be disability in general, want to do these careers but never did. And I can't really say go do it, because that was exactly the thing that I did. I went, nah, fuck that. I'm gonna go do this instead.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I would never want to be pigeonholed into just doing CP roles at all. But I would like to do both because both are part of me, do you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Like, I'm a person with a disability, but I don't have to play the disabled person all the time. I
exactly.
think that's a, excuse me, that's the important thing about it. Um, but yeah, so that's probably the main thing.
Coming back to casting, I've got a very random question for you. What's the weirdest
Mm-hmm.
casting you've ever been given by like a client looking for someone, and they're like, "Can you find this person with 12 legs and 4 arms?" And you're like, "No, no, I can't."
A lot of the stuff that we get sent as agents, we can't really talk about it,
Okay.
but like, yeah, so I mean, there's been some fun, like commercial castings are always funny. They always ask for really obscure, random things, which are always a bit of a giggle, finding somebody who's up for it or has experience do something random, or, that's always a good
Yeah.
one. Um, and now, because my partner's an actor, I have fun filming his self tapes with him. Like, if he gets something really random through, I'm like, oh, today I'm going to be a camera up, and I'm like doing the filming for him and stuff. And it's always a bit of a giggle when we have to like turn our apartment upside down, or like
Yeah.
just find a really random costume or something like that. But it's good fun.
I always like, do you know one that threw me off? I had a casting call once where I had to show them my hands, which is a fairly normal
Yeah.
thing. But one of the things, so my other disability that I've got is I've got fused elbows, which basically means I can't fully extend my arm and I can't supinate or turn over my wrist in plain English. And I was doing this casting call and I'm going, how the fuck do I show the top back of my my palms? I can't do it. Like I can't really go back to them and be like, I just can't. So you're not getting it. So literally, I'm like there.
Error
Gina's
code.
like, yeah. Gina's like stood underneath me, taking pictures of my hands the other way. It was weird, very strange.
But they don't actually think about these things sometimes in terms of the like accessibility of castings. Like, because I
No,
mean, we're having a bit of a giggle about it now, and I guess it is funny to an extent, but it happens, right?
no, 100%. I've met people I've known that have gone to casting, so they've got to the casting, and it's like they're wheelchair users, and it's like climb these 4 flights of stairs, and you're like, can't
I
do
know.
that. It's mad that it still happens though. It's mad that it
I
still
know.
happens. But also, I think what frustrates me most about the performing arts industry is they're like always like, oh, we're so creative, we're so edgy, and then you hear these stories and you go, guys, we're meant to be creative. Come on, come up with a creative
I know.
solution.
I know. And this is what frustrates me about productions that can come up with solutions because the lighting is wrong, or they
Yeah,
need to make it like nighttime when it's daytime, or they want to pay for a new location last minute, but they can't put money or thought in for like accessibility. I mean, it's improving now, but like that is still a problem for sure.
how do you manage that with clients?
Um, or anyone that I sign now, we do like a little access rider together if they want to. Obviously they don't have to, but I do encourage it because then it means like if someone is booked, like I had it recently with a client who was booked for a commercial, like I was armed with the stats and the info, so I could speak to the producer and like be like, right, okay, we're going to need X, Y, and Z, um, which just makes it a lot smoother. And then obviously the client, where they can, are checking in with me while they're on the job. And it just means like if they're on a 3-day shoot and on day one, certain things weren't met or certain things were challenging, then I've got something to kind of build on with the production team from that point, because we'd already spoken about access. So I try and do that. I try and do like an access rider with whoever wants to have one. And it is fluid. Sometimes people might want to have one, and then after 2 months of signing, they might be like, actually, this would really help me. So, but I think it's really important to have that practice, like, as part of the ethos of my agency, because I believe in it so strongly.
Also, again, another random question, but how do you, because obviously with castings and anything in the sort of performing space, it's so fast paced and chaotic. So how do you make sure that you communicate with your clients? Obviously they're going to know, because likely it is, it's not the first time they've done it, but how do you manage that with your clients to be like, things are a little bit up in the air and I don't really know what to do next?
And this is the thing, like, things are last minute, things are up in the air. Where I can, I will, like if a client wants me to disclose, then I will, and I'll say, look, as part of their access requirements, we need to know what the fuck's going on a bit sooner than somebody else might need to know what's going on. And if I can't provide the information, then I just do my best to provide reassurance and just like reiterate what I do know.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, like, if it's out of my control, if I'm the agent and the cast member come pretty like far along the chain of communication, right, when a shoot's happening. So like, I try my best, and when I can't fish the information out, I just reiterate what I do know, and just provide reassurance, and at least be there to communicate any concerns that they have and answer it as best I can. That's kind of how I try and do things.
As well as that whole thing of, I say you can only do what you can.
Yeah.
Have you faced much backlash from like directors? Not backlash, friction's probably a better word. From directors and stuff going, we can't do that.
No, not in my experience. I've been even in my journey as an access coordinator as well. Like, everyone just wants to move forward, and everybody wants to have a more accessible industry. That's why the TV Access Project exists, right? Because they've all pledged for this. Everybody wants it. Yeah, things might be tricky with budget, or alternative solutions that also work for the individual might need to be made. But yeah, everyone wants to move forward with it, and everyone wants, disability and accessibility to actually be thought about. They just need a little bit of extra help doing it, which is why access coordinators exist now.
And we're going to come straight on to that. So what the hell is an access coordinator?
So my experience, because we've got access coordinators for different industries now, like live events and theatre and things like that. But in film and TV, which is what I do, an access coordinator is hired by production to support deaf, disabled, neurodivergent talent in front and behind the camera. So I would be like an advisor or a consultant to work with a production to make their production more accessible in general, and then also based on the needs of who they've hired. I think that was quite a good description. Does that make sense?
Really good description. And when you say, because the bit that intrigued me was in front of camera giving them support, what might that look like? Because I would imagine directors like, fuck off, Abbie, get out the shot.
Yeah. No, so I'm not on set a whole lot unless people need it. But like, let's say, okay, you're an actor, Charlie. Your GCSE dreams are coming true. You're an actor now. You're going to set. I'm your access coordinator. You've been booked. I phone you and I'm like, right, let's go through everything from like travel and accommodation right the way through to costume changing. I mean, you just spoke to me about your elbows. So like, if somebody needs to put gloves on you, do you need assistance with that? Like, talk to me about that. Can you do buttons? Do you need visual cues on the floor, like where your markings are? Are you light sensitive? Do your scripts, like, do you need your scripts in easy read or like double spacing? Everything. We'd go through everything.
That's sick.
And then I'd like speak to each and I'd speak to each department.
That's
I'd just
amazing.
speak to each department and be like, okay. This is
I'm
what's
literally sat
needed.
here going, because one of my other things, so I can't, as I say, can't turn my wrist over, but one of my big problems, and it's the only problem I haven't been able to solve, is I still can't put my own shoes on. And so that's a common one
Oh
that comes.
yeah, I
So,
suppose.
so like if they're not allowing me to sort of book, I mean Abbie knows Gina and everyone else knows Gina. If they're not allowing me to book like sort of Gina onto what I'm doing, and that's
Mm.
a problem I'm going to come up against. It's like, fuck. What do I do next? And also, it's a bit of a weird one because like I have no, I imagine if I went up to someone I didn't know, right, can you help me put my shoes on? They'd be like, yeah, sure, no worries. But the problem comes in of everyone that doesn't know how to do it. It's too dainty because everyone seems to think us disabled people like will just snap like a
A
twig.
frail, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah, yeah. Oh my god, I totally relate to that. Yeah.
so like the idea of like someone that's gone through it all, and also I think this comes with any disability. Oh, the anxiety of not knowing like what the place is going to be like or what the situation is, what
Yeah.
the access like. Oh, the relief! Like I really struggle to be spontaneous, not because I'm not a spontaneous person, but because of the way it's tuned in my head of like need to check out what the parking's like, need to check out what the toilet's like, need to check
Mhm.
this out,
Mhm.
need to phone about this, need to do this. So it's like when someone comes to you, oh, do you want to come to this thing? You know, I can't just. I'd love to, but I can't just come. So the idea of having,
Yeah. One can simply not just turn up.
yeah,
Like, it doesn't
yeah,
work like
yeah,
that.
no.
Yeah.
Or my
Oh,
personal
I totally
favorite,
relate. Yeah.
is it accessible? We can make it work, and I'm like, that does not provide me any reassurance at all.
No,
But yeah,
no.
so
People need to know what they're talking about.
in a work context, like, oh, that would be like a blessing having someone that's just gone through it all with me. Also, it just takes the weight off of the individual as well. It's that whole thing of they
Yeah,
they
that's what
know
it's supposed to do.
yeah, someone's in their corner. They know someone's in their corner. They know, yeah, that it's not going to have to be an awkward interaction of, oh, I can't do that. And then it's like, well, if you can't do that, well, then we can't do this. And then that's a problem. And then, yeah, I love that idea.
That,
Like,
well, that's the reason it came about. Is like, so if this was real, like you wouldn't have to worry about any of that. You could just go to set and just be an actor
yeah.
like everybody else. That's the bottom line here. That's what we're talking about. It's just so somebody can go to set and just do their job.
And then I suppose as well that adds into the professionalism because naturally, as a performer, you almost have to. It's like when I used to compete in swimming. It's the same thing of like you have to get yourself in a zone or get yourself off like
Mm.
in sort of a mindset. And then if you're being asked, you're trying to get in like a really serious like emotional mood, and some dude's coming up to you going, "Can you put your shoes on?" And it's like,
Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, that's true though. Funny.
and then because people don't. I suppose it's that whole thing of, but they wouldn't have to worry about anyone else. But then also, I always argue, particularly with people with different lived experience, they're able to give something completely different to a
Mm.
performance because there's just there's that little bit of spice that they ain't got and
Yeah.
you've got.
Yeah, yeah. So true.
What advice would you give to young people looking in to get into performing though?
This is going to sound really like sad to hear, but I think something that I learned is you have to get used to hearing no,
Yeah.
and you can't let rejection crush you because like if I let rejection crush me, I wouldn't be working in film and TV now. I don't know what I'd be doing because if I wasn't, then I'd be like super miserable. I don't know. Maybe I'd be like. I was going to say maybe I'd be a beauty therapist, but I don't have the hand-eye coordination for that, so that goes out the window. So, yeah, I think like you have to get used to hearing no
Yeah.
because it's such a saturated market. It's a highly competitive industry. But if you crumble on your first no, then you are just not like cut out for it. But in the same way, don't be afraid to ask questions. You know, like you've got to seek out opportunities as much as things might be in your face, as much as you might go to like apply for a job or look at jobs on Mandy or Spotlight or Star Now or like get an agent or anything. If you don't kind of actively seek out opportunities and you're just one of those people that just waits for like the passive stuff to happen, that's to me that's not where success and a
Yeah.
successful mindset comes from. Because you have to be hungry for it, and like that actually sounds so cringe because I hate when people say that, but it is true. It is true.
It's like anything though. Like you have to be hungry for it because there's going to be. It's like
Yeah,
anything worth having is hard to get. I know that sounds like a cliche, but then like
yeah,
if you take this podcast, for example, and I've spoken out a few times. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love doing it and wouldn't change it for the world. But what people don't see is the amount of work that goes into the back end of it.
mm,
And like
yeah,
you said, with
yeah,
the rejection thing, not outing anyone, but the amount of guests I've reached out to and they've either no response or no, or your numbers aren't big enough, this, that, the other. And you just got to kind of roll with it because my little motto is on to the next one. That's
yeah,
literally what my mindset does because I'm like, if I get too caught up in it, you can drive yourself mad. Like, don't get me wrong, there's certain people you get on and you think, or like there's certain people you want to get on and you think, if I get a yes from this, I am going to be totally fanboying for the next week. But
yeah,
likelihood is that's not going to happen because you're still in a growing phase and you're still building and like it will come. It's just you got to keep pushing. It's like the same thing people ask me. Like, I mean, I'm not big by any stretch of the imagination, but people go like, "Oh, how did you start social media?" And I'm like, I just kept titting about and then kept titting about, and it's found out what worked and what didn't,
you have
and that was that.
to. Yeah, it's
It
exactly what
was
it's about, though, isn't it?
100%, 100%. And I think I would give like, I love seeing people, particularly like people with disabilities and stuff, really dive into the creative space because I'm like, there are so many opportunities that you can utilize, but like you say, you gotta go for it. You gotta go for it and go looking for
And
it. If you don't go looking for it, some of the passive stuff might come your way, but there's no guarantees either.
yeah, it's a very like small amount of people. And admittedly, I think all of us have to work very hard not to resent it. But there's a small amount of people that stuff just comes to.
Uh
It
huh.
just happens for
Yeah.
them. It
Yeah.
just does. They just seem to be. I mean, of course, this is only what we see as well, which
Yeah.
is not the whole life. But that can get very like consuming. You think, oh, like why is it not
Yeah.
happening for me? Why do things not just come my way? But like, you know, people work hard, and there's a lot that you don't see about what people are doing. But yeah, you have to have resilience. You have to be willing to like move forward. I say this to my clients too. Like, if they do a self tape or a casting, and particularly if it's for something big, I'm like, you have to forget about it because otherwise, like, if you're if you're pining for every day and then it is a no, that's going to really sting. But
Yeah.
if you forget about it, it happens to be a no, but you've done like 3 or 4 other great tapes since then. Like, don't even worry about
Yeah.
it. It just like it just wasn't meant for you.
And also
Or
opportunities
even
like,
then, if you actually book it,
yeah. Yeah.
if they book it,
Uh,
then it's like, oh, that's a nice surprise. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, as well as that, like opportunities always circle back, and it sounds really
Then
horrible to say, but like sometimes opportunities will go amiss, and I'll sit there and go, they'll be back because
yeah,
my little coping mechanism, my brain goes, they'll be back because I'll make them want to be back, and that's literally what
yeah.
I always. It's that I think that
It's so powerful though.
I think
Yeah.
that comes from the disability thing because all of us are always told no, so we don't like the word no, and so we go fuck it, let's just see what we can do.
Yeah. Oh my god, yeah. No, I'm exactly the same. I'm exactly the same.
But yeah, it's what do you experience that a lot though in the performing space of like people or coming across as, and not in a way to out anyone, but like coming across in a way of like being entitled, because I think as well that it's hard because I think some entitlement we all have because there's that little bit like you said, there's always those people that things just come to and you just sit there thinking fuck you, but like it's
I
just
know.
part of the game. But do you see much of like the entitlement thing? Because I think particularly in today's generation we see it all the time. I love watching year sevens now in comparison to the way I am now, and the reason I bring that into the entitlement conversation is because they are the ballsiest people you'll ever meet. And then I cast it back to
Yeah.
when I was in year seven in my oversized blazer going, yeah, I'm not going near the year 11s, they're scary.
I know, me too. Clutching my rucksack, like too scared to even say a couple of words in English, like an English lesson. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was the same. I was the same.
Yeah.
And now they just, no, they're a lot more like brash and
Yeah.
confident. I just think like times have changed, and I really aged myself by saying that. I feel like that's what my parents say. But like we always say that, don't we, about like different generations to us and stuff.
Yeah.
With I don't really see a lot of that with my client base. Like all
Oh
my
no,
clients are
I,
so talented and wonderful, but also very humble,
yeah, I
which
figured
I
it
actually
wouldn't.
think goes a long way.
I think knowing you, I figured it wouldn't be your clients because I'm like your clients are gonna be a very big reflection on you, and I know that's not you. It was more, do you see it in the industry more?
Oh my god,
With
yeah, all the
I
time.
think I think it's fair to be any kind of creative. You got to have a certain level of entitlement because you got to be deluded until it all happens.
So I went to no, it's true. I went to a party when I was in Cannes, and it was like, oh my god, it was like following a treasure map. First, you had to register online, then you had to be accepted and get your QR code, and then you had to get your QR code and go somewhere to collect a wristband. And then once you had your wristband, you had to turn up at a certain time because even though you had a wristband, it didn't guarantee entry. And there is a
What?
reason I'm telling this story. It's to do with entitlement. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Wild,
you know,
absolutely
can
wild.
yeah, I know. Can is quite a or was quite like a civilized, like
Yeah,
it's quite a you get a certain group of people that go there because they're serious about making
yeah,
films and things like that, or that they're serious about the industry.
yeah.
So tell me why, Charlie, when I got my wristband for this party and I turned up on time, me and my partner, and we were early because I'm anxious and like to me,
Yeah.
unless I'm early, I'm late.
Yep. I'm with you there.
Why is it that there's like 200 people queuing up with wristbands and they are shoving, and it's literally like 17-year-olds or 18-year-olds have just got their freshers wristband for Oceania and they are trying to ram rate their way in because they feel that they need to be in this space. It was the most embarrassing, entitled thing I've ever seen in my life. I've
Yeah.
just like grown adults shoving people out of the way, like couples getting split off, girls getting shoved into, handbags falling to the floor, blokes getting bumped, like just absolute carnage. And I think when I think about that, like entitlement of like, I deserve to be at this party because I had this wristband. I mean, guilty. I had a wristband. I was going to go, but yeah, it was just that like I need to be here because I'm somebody. It was really, really a thing.
And I hate that.
Um,
I hate that because
yeah,
I always relate that back. And I know I'm making very weird comparisons. I always do. But I always relate it to like being a gym head. You know, the whole fucking newbies in the gym in January, and I sit there and I go, bro, that was you 5 years ago. That
yeah, that
was
was
you.
you.
So get over it. I
It's true though.
remember
It's
where
true.
you started because also like everyone started
No,
somewhere. That's why I think whenever I've had it before where I've reached out to people and they're like, oh, but I'm not that big, and I'm like, you don't need to be big. You just need to be a good be a good person and be entertaining. Like it's not. I
no,
don't believe in that whole thing. Like obviously, the social media algorithm means that we always look for the big people, but I don't believe in that because I'm like, everyone starts off small someday. Like no one's
yeah,
born with 1,500 like 15,000 fans or like 15,000 followers. Everyone starts somewhere. So I always think like if I was like now, like I'm nowhere. I'm not big at all. I don't consider myself big, and even by like social media standards, I'm not big either. But like I always look at things and go, if I can give someone small a leg up, I'm always going to do that because I was
me
there
too.
once. And it's the same when it
Yeah, me
comes to
too.
like bringing it back to the disability thing. Like I love seeing kids' eyes or someone I speak to's eyes light up because they hear an experience I had or a thing that I've gone through and gone, shit, I thought I was never going to be able to do that. I love watching
No,
that penny drop of like, oh wait, he did it, so I can do it. That is like a, a drug that I can't get enough of. Just to watch their eyes light
me
up
too.
because it's so nice seeing. I think being entitled never gets you anywhere. I think being a good
No,
being I always come back to treat someone how you want to be treated. And I know that's a cliche thing, but it comes back to whenever I talk about
it's true though.
because I talk about business a lot. Like managing people or being a manager. I've never managed a big team, but I always think like always treat your team the way you want to be treated, because then they're gonna
Hmm.
go that little bit further for you. Then if you're a dickhead,
Yeah,
they're gonna go, yeah, I ain't helping you with that. You can stay on your own. And it's the same thing. It all
I
comes,
know.
all comes to those who wait, is the famous saying.
It does. I agree with that. I do.
It's really hard to
I mostly
articulate
work
because
hard.
you got to work hard. And I think it's hard. Whenever I bring up this, I always sound like a in trying to defend not being entitled. I'm always concerned that I come across as entitled, but it's more like, yeah, just also appreciate the success that you have. I think that's the other piece of advice I would give is appreciate
I
the
know.
success.
I've got lost in that sometimes. I'm trying to like.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't like. Yeah, get the moment. Do you know? I don't sit in the
yeah,
moment enough, and I'm really trying to do that. Um, Even with like awards that I've won and stuff, and just great successes that I've had, but I don't actually sit with it. I'm like, all right,
no,
what's next? So I'm
yeah,
trying to get better
literally.
at doing that.
My worst trait is I will never look like. I think Gina is a big one for reminding me and going, I know where you want to go, but also look where you started, look where you are now.
Yeah,
It's wild,
yeah.
absolutely wild.
I
So
know.
best piece of advice I would give, yeah, as I say, just like you say, live in the moment a bit more. But on that note of positivity, spinning it around, I'm going to hit you with the last question, which is, what's one
Mhm.
piece of politically correctness that you really strongly agree with or disagree with?
I disagree with like saying sorry when you're not.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I get that. As a stubborn motherfucker myself, I get that. I really do get that.
Yeah, but even for anything, like whether you're like having a conversation with somebody or whether it's like somebody's bumped into you in the street and then you apologize to them.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know what's
Like,
hilarious?
do you know what I mean?
Do you know what's
Yeah,
hilarious? It's a British thing. I found this
yeah.
out. I was at a wedding with a good friend of mine and my business partner, and all of his like we were me and Gina were the only Brits there,
Then
and literally they spent, no word of a lie, an hour discussing the fact of like, why do you Brits always say sorry? Like what's
I
with that?
know,
Like why?
I
And
know.
it's like, and then you sit and you think about it and you go, I don't know. It's just something. It's like autopilot.
Yeah,
We just do it.
I know. Yeah, so probably that saying sorry when you're not like in any
Yeah,
situation. Like, yeah, that's probably it for me.
100%. And I think, yeah, I think the it's hard. I think as well. Like so obviously, I'm also a big, which is controversial. I'm a big believer of managing a situation. So like, if
Yeah,
we've all been in those situations where you just sit there thinking, flipping hell, it's kicked off or for whatever reason, and you know that if you don't say sorry, even though you might be completely right, it's not going to get any better. So sometimes I do sit there and go, do you know what? I'm going to do it because for the better of this occasion. So if you play it in like a friend's birthday context or whatever it might be, I'm like, look, I'm not gonna try and spoil their day. So I'm just going to admit defeat, and that's probably a bad thing because it's me taking the hit when unnecessarily. But I think that's the only thing I would disagree with that is like I'm a big believer of like only have confrontation if there needs to be confrontation. And I think that's what
yeah,
makes me a bit different in the disability world. I'm not saying that everyone needs confrontation in the disability world, but I'm a big believer of like, I will pick my fights and I don't want to
yeah,
always pick a fight if I don't need to. So I think that would only be my only caveat is, yeah, managing a situation. I'm a big believer of that because I've seen so many situations where it is turned a lot worse than it should have been, and it's purely because no
yeah.
one wanted to swallow their pride.
You're better than me then. I'm a bit feisty.
Oh no, I'm still feisty. Don't like
I'll admit it as well.
don't get me wrong. I think it also depends on context. Like family
Yeah,
members,
yeah, brilliant.
mate, me and you are going 20 rounds. I will stay there till the end. Whereas Whereas I think other situations is a bit different, but like, yeah, I do, and I think as well if it's for the benefit of someone else, like if someone else I know I care about has been
Yeah,
affected by it, then I'll be like, do you know what? I am
yeah,
stubborn, but I'm going to let this go because It's not worth it.
Yeah,
But yeah,
agreed.
we've had
Oh,
a
that's a
great
very nice note to end on,
I know. We've had a
isn't
great
it?
conversation. I love these ones as well, where
Yeah.
we touch on so many different topics and we go off on tangents, because those are the nice ones. Because then it's like it's just a chat, and I love those.
Yeah, it's more organic, isn't it? Rather than like interview style.
100%. And also, I never want. And if any guest has been on and felt interrogated, like let me know. But I never want my guests to feel interrogated. So like, yeah, I like to make sure they feel comfortable and chill. So yeah, I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
Perfect. I will link all of Abbie's details below. So if you want to check her out, message her, get involved in her agency, do whatever, I will link it all below for you.